Welcome back. Welcome back to our YouTube channel of the Food Truck, where we say God is doing something special for us on the Me and You. Let me ask you, do you remember this? Some of y'all know what that is. The ones that don't know, this was a magazine that was made for children. Children that got this magazine each month. Mine used to come on the first of the month, or it come between the 1st to the 15th of each month. And I get so excited when I saw this magazine because there were a lot of activities that were geared for children. And there was one particular part of this magazine that I made sure that I would go to at the beginning. No matter what they had in the magazine, there was a certain part of this magazine that I would turn the pages to right off the bat. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I see you smiling. If you are old head, born in 1970s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That was a picture similar to this. You know what that is. On this, it was an image that the child had an opportunity to find objects that might be out of place or don't belong there, but you would find it and circle it and make sure that what you were circling was what they were asking for. So you will see the image, and they will have what you need to find in this image, and you would go through this image and find where exactly are these hidden figures. It was so exciting. I mean, I remember going to the doctor's office, going into the building, and right when I sat down, I would see this magazine and I would grab it and I would make sure I would go to page number 14. And sometimes there would be some times where they would have the image with no one had circled anything, but sometimes you would have those magazines where an individual, a child, would go through and not finish the work. Oh, that would make me so upset. The image that was portrayed would always grab your attention, but there was always something hidden in the background or in front of you that you really didn't pay attention. So today, in our virtual Bible study, if you want to call it that, this new segment of Vigil, we're going to look at a passage of scripture, a familiar passage, a familiar story, where we're going to see, was this the hidden jewel that the author wanted us to see? So come right back after this short commercial break as we dive into this text on this new segment of Visual. Let's see what God is about to show us. Just like the Highlight magazine, which I love, like I said previously, good directors have a way of doing the same practice where they draw your attention to an object so that when you pay attention to the object or the message about that object, there's a hidden message underneath that you won't discover until the end. Do you know this person? Maybe not. Or you might know of him because he directed this movie, this movie, this movie. His name is Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele is a interesting director, and I like him. I mean, his mindset of how he directs his movie, portraying an object or a message that is so obvious that everyone can see. But in the meanwhile, in the background, Jordan has a way of showing another message that he doesn't want the audience to know about through the art of filming. Now, with filming, there are certain things that a director may show so that you can really clearly understand what they are doing. One practice is they will blur the background. See? Another practice is they have individuals that are in a scene to speak quietly. See, you can't hear what I just said. They speak quietly, making the audience ear to listen hard so they can understand the importance of what they are saying. Another practice that you might not be aware of is Jordan Peele does this sort of like zoom in color gray on the actor's face to give this appearance that the person is in trouble or indicating other things that will foreshadow about the movie ahead. Just stay with me just for a second. Another way that you might have seen is a white background like this, showing that it's indicating that you are seeing events that have happened in the past. You know what? So if the Highlight magazine portrays illustration, shows us a picture, but shows us that there are hidden figures in there, and movies do the same thing, I wonder if the Bible does. Well, there are some practices that today I would like to share with you that can better equip you to understand some messages that are located in the Bible on one story to show that the author stated this, but was the author really illustrating and focusing on what we see, or was there another message that we might have missed? I learned something that throughout the Old Testament, from Genesis to Malachi, all through Old Testament, there are three principles that the author wants us to see when dealing with God. What God is showing his people, the Israelites, throughout the Old Testament, Genesis through Malachi. And I would like to share with you, and it's sort of like how we look at filming today that shows that something is very important. The Bible in the Old Testament, there is a way that you can see and that can guide us in understanding texts that are in those books. The first practice, the privilege of a seed. The privilege of a seed. The second one, the proclamation of a new covenant. The proclamation of a new covenant. So we have the privilege of a seed, the proclamation of a new covenant, and the final one is the promise of new land. The promise of new land. Those three principles, you can see this pattern being illustrated from Genesis all the way through Malachi, especially when we're dealing with major characters. Let's put it to the test. Let's see. The story of Joseph, and I remember this especially in Bible study 101 with Miss Thompson on Sunday morning, Sunday school. I love that woman. And what happened was she told me the story of Joseph. Joseph, if you don't know, I would encourage you to go and read the story of Joseph. But I'm just going to give you a little background of this story. Joseph can interpret dreams. At a young age, he shared with his brothers and his father that he would be put at a higher magnitude where everything would be bowing to him, even them. Now, could you imagine that? You mean to tell me you're my younger brother and you will be in a position that I would be bowing down to you? Nah, bruh. Nah, that can't happen. So we go on through the story. The brothers become angry and jealous of Joseph, and what they do to him is they put him in a position that they sell him into slavery. Joseph is sold into slavery, and he finds himself in Egypt. Now, while in Egypt, he is accused of raping his master's wife. He didn't do it. He finds himself in jail. After finding himself in jail, he interprets dreams to many people who were in the prison. And then he has the opportunity to interpret the dream of the Pharaoh. He does, and this is where it gets quite interesting. Pharaoh makes him second in command, which fulfills what he was talking about when he says, everything will one day be bowing down to me. Now, when I heard that story, Miss Thompson presented it very good to me. I loved it. And the next thing that she says, the moral of the story, which many of you have heard, is that even though your enemies do you wrong, God will turn it around and make it for your good. I mean, that was a clear message. And when I looked at that text, I agree. That is so true. When your enemies do things against you that are evil, God has a way of turning it around for your good. But one thing that I was wondering, was that really the message that the author really wanted to portray to me? So I looked, and the first question that I had to ask was, one, who is the author? The author is Moses. Moses, as you know, Moses is the one who goes to Pharaoh and says, let my people go. The same people that are in the same story as Joseph. And then it goes to the next chapter. There rose a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. Wow. So why would Moses be sharing the story of Joseph? And remember, the privilege of the seed, the proclamation of the new covenant, and the promise of the new land. Did Joseph fit those descriptions? So I looked at the text, and I'm trying to find, where is that found in this story? Guess what? I found it. If you look in Genesis chapter 44, there comes a time where Joseph and his brothers are wanting some grain because of famine has reigned in the land. There is a moment of time where something happened that you might miss if you don't pay attention. It comes from Genesis, the 44th chapter, and I'd like to read that for us, starting at verse number 33. And it reads this. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain as a slave to my Lord in the place of the boy, and let the boy go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I feared to see the suffering that would come upon my father. Who is speaking this is this, starting at verse number 18 of that Genesis chapter 44. Then Judah stepped up to him and said, "O my Lord, let your servant please speak a word in my Lord's ear, and do not be angry with your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself." Judah. Judah did something that fits those connections. Remember, the privilege of the seed, the proclamation of the new covenant, and the promise of the new land. How do you see that? Judah. What do we know about Judah? What do we know about the tribe of Judah? Jesus. Moses is sharing this story as an indication of what all the events that happened in Joseph's life. This one moment is foreshadowing of what's to come.